Over 100 years ago, Daniel Webster said, "Discussion is the anvil on which the spark of truth is struck." Today, our discussion is devoted to political action. One morning, Mrs. Thomas Dixon found a problem laid at her door, a problem a good many other Americans have awakened to. In anticipation of the end of rent control by the Clinton City Council, all rental units, and that includes your home, Mrs. Dixon, are subject to a 15% increase. Signed, C.T. Thorpe.
Oh, say, George, I assume you've got your ducks in a row for that council meeting.
We've got enough votes to swing it now, Mr. Thorpe.
I'm sorry it leaked out to the papers, George. Bad business. Might cause a rumpus, you know.
Now, you just take it easy, Mr. Thorpe. There's no cause to worry. No. That's right.
But Mrs. Dixon had cause to worry. Her husband's salary could not take another 15% raise in rent. It seemed unfair for Clinton City Council to legislate only for the welfare of Thorpe properties. On a one-woman crusade, Mrs. Dixon decided to do something about it. Clinton, a town of about 100,000, a town with some rich, but mostly low-income and lower middle-income people. People just getting along, working in its mills and stores, on land owned mostly by Thorpe Properties. There are some who say Thorpe Properties has Clinton in its pocket, that its influence is felt in the city council, in the state government, even among representatives in Washington. Going into the office of Thorpe Properties, Mrs. Dixon didn't expect much, nor did she get much, other than a polite brush-off. Next, Mrs. Dixon visited the local rent control office. The director seemed resigned to the inevitable, that the city council would remove all controls. What could he do? But Mrs. Dixon was still determined to do something. She went in to see her ward captain.
And if they sell out the people, I think it would be a disgrace to Clinton. A terrible shame.
Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute, Mrs. Dixon. Let me say something. You say you're against Grady and the rest of the city council. Okay, so they're corrupt. Tell me, who'd you vote for the last election?
I didn't vote. I didn't get around to it.
No, Mrs. Dixon didn't get around to voting at the last election. In the city of Clinton, more than half of its eligible voters didn't get around to it. In the 1948 national election, nearly 1 out of every 2 of our citizens didn't get around to it. In 1950, in some state, county, and municipal elections, over half of our eligible voters didn't get around to their business of government. No, Mrs. Dixon didn't vote in the last election.
How do you do? This is Willard Shelton, your Washington reporter. Today we are discussing a subject that concerns us all, the foundations of a healthy democracy. Our guest today is Senator Hubert Humphrey of Minnesota, who was elected to the Senate in 1948 after serving as mayor of his home city of Minneapolis. Senator Humphrey, how can we get more people to take advantage of their right to participate in electing their own representatives?
Well, you see, the first thing the American people have to understand is that politics in a democracy, in a free country such as ours, is the people's business. And as I've said a number of times, if the people don't take care of their business, why, somebody's going to give them the business. It means that you have to apply yourself to the job of being a fully participating citizen. Now, this adds up to each individual being registered, or some of his friends seeing to it that he is registered to vote. It means knowing the issues, not just before the election, but every single day of the year, the basic issues that affect your life and your community and your nation. Also, it means arousing an interest in young people, and in the women in particular, too, in an active participation and enlightened interest in American politics. Now, I think if you get all of that done, plus good organization in your own trade union, in your own group, in your own neighborhood, in your own political party, then you're going to have people take a better interest in the choosing of their representatives to serve them in local, state, and federal government.
Thank you, Senator. In the case of Clinton, we have seen the attempt of special interests to influence the machinery of government. Let's go on with that story.
Mrs. Dixon took other means of expressing her opposition to the forthcoming decontrol of rent. One person, up against overwhelming odds, she was about to give up. But that afternoon, she discovered something. The existence of a political action club in the neighborhood. CIO union members and their wives working together to awaken people to their responsibilities as American citizens, to act on political issues that involve the greatest good of the people. Mrs. Dixon's neighbor was a precinct captain. That night, Mrs. Dixon and her husband went to a PAC meeting. And there, they met union men and women interested in practical politics. Faced by a community problem, these people believe in solving it by democratic action. Mrs. Dixon saw democracy in action, people working at the business of government, of politics. The next day, Mrs. Dixon pitched in as a volunteer, filling out postcards, making telephone calls, visiting her neighbors, urging them to register, talking about rent control. Taken alone, perhaps insignificant, but in every district of Clinton, the same organizational work was going on, helping to make each person in Clinton count, each citizen, a major purpose of political action. Organization on which the success of political action depends. PAC, a committee of the CIO, union-sponsored, but its activities open to all Americans, union and non-union alike, an important means of bringing about effective community action. PAC operates with simple, open, direct techniques to inform members of the CIO, their families and friends, such as the Dixons, and to make politics the people's business. Day by day, PAC works to convert these convictions, which we mean to do something about someday, into concrete results today.
Senator Humphrey, what is the best way for an individual to influence his local and national governments?
Well, the very first thing that he must do is to vote, not just talk about it, but to vote. And then, of course, he has the right of petition, the right of letter writing to his congressman, to know his city, to know his state, and to be actively interested in his government. I think that's the best way to bring his influence to bear upon the local, state, and national government.
In Clinton, a week before the city council was to meet, the odds were that rent ceilings would come off. But things were stirring down below. People were beginning to register so they could vote in the next election. They were signing up as block workers. They were developing their own political organization, organizing precinct committees, passing out handbills, and soon various organizations and lobbies of special interest in Clinton began to sit up and take notice, began to protest the so-called meddling of unions in politics.
I tell you, unions have no business in politics. Let them stick to their own affairs. If this keeps up, we'll be well on the road to National Socialism, calamity, anything else you want to say.
That's right, sure.
No doubt about it.
Well, Senator Humphrey, what's the answer? Is there really anything wrong with unions in politics?
Well, I could say there'd be something definitely wrong if unions were not in politics. After all, unions are people. They're voluntary associations of people, and associations of people whose lives are affected by the acts of government, by politics. Let's get it quite crystal clear that politics touches the lives of every person, And obviously, working people that have joined together in their unions have a great interest in the political decisions of their local, state, and national government. I say that unions must be active in politics. Their leadership must be active, and their membership must be active. And they must be active not only as voters, but as informed voters, voters that are thinking in terms of the public interest, the general welfare, and in the specific economic and political interest of their families and of their communities. So more power to the unions that are in politics and in it for keeps and for the good of their country.
Thank you, Senator Humphrey.
In the next few days, the results of PAC's organizational work began to show.
To tell the truth, George, I'm quite disappointed in what's going on over there.
You might as well face it, Mr. Thorpe. We've stirred up a hornet's nest. You can take my advice and let things calm down. There'll be time enough.
The day came when Clinton's City Council met. And so Mrs. Dixon felt the power of her citizenship when she took time and effort to use it. Clinton was one instance where political action advanced the public welfare. Just as rent decontrol was Clinton's special problem, all over the nation, PAC is helping to give expression to the feelings and opinions of millions of our citizens. In Clinton, the problem was only solved temporarily through stopgap action until the voters made known their wishes at the next election, when gains can be solidified and made permanent by electing those truly representative of the general welfare. Yes, the only way to make democracy live, to make democracy work, is to vote. And to vote, you must be registered. Have you registered? Watch for the CIO's next issue on the important topics of the day.